Okay, well, I'm back with another basketball video, and today we're going to talk about something that I wanted to talk about not too long ago, but I just really had the idea to fully flesh the idea out. We're going to be talking about the NBA standings and my predictions for where I think each and every team can realistically finish, right? I will probably make a part two to this video, just in general. And I will only be talking about teams that I either have a strong opinion on or ones that I think actually stand a legitimate chance in general of just making, the playoffs, doing whatever they have to do. Yeah. I will only be talking about where I think teams can realistically finish, as not the amount of games I think they can realistically win, because spoiler alert, if I did that, I would actually have to calculate how many games every single team wins, and the league's games won versus lost have to be 50-50, so I'd have to do the math on all of that, and I don't feel like doing that. Obviously, this is a one-take channel, so I, I'm basically going to look at what spot that I saw a team finish in last year and be like, do I realistically think they can finish there again? And if not, where do I think they'll realistically be? All right. So, we're going to look at a certain team first, because we're starting in the Eastern Conference. The last year's number one seed was the 53-win Miami Heat. There were a lot of 50-win teams in the East last year. Do I think that the Heat can replicate that? Well, given the fact that the Heat were not healthy the entire year, and they still did that, basically, and the fact that they've been known to do this for multiple years, I'm going to say no. Now, the reason I'm going to say no is not because I genuinely think the Heat team is worse. I think I should be expecting some regression from older vets, and I don't really see Bam Adebayo becoming the player that we thought he was going to be even 2 years ago, to be quite honest. I think he'll still make some general basketball improvements, but nothing earth-shattering or major. He's going to come up with a jump shot, and yeah, I think that's just unrealistic for him to change his playing style right now, and unless Spoelstra really enforces him being a star and not just a star, but one of the better all-stars in the league, I really don't see that happening for him. Jimmy's gonna always do what he does in the playoffs. It's whatever, but I still don't see Miami really doing it. Now remember, they were 1-3 away from the finals last year, but I do think they'll take a massive step back because they don't really have the momentum. That was all of the momentum they would have. Remember, 2021, they didn't have any momentum at all. They were coming off of the eventual sweep from the eventual champions, and they had just come off Rocky Bubble year. This really felt like their year to either make the finals again or really take a step back. I'm looking at the contracts that they have, and I don't really see them progressing in a manner that's beneficial. The Boston Celtics. Now, this may be controversial. I don't know if it is or isn't. They started off the last year absolutely terrible. They have better chemistry. They've added a better piece in there. The piece does not have to play meaningful minutes or moments. Any of that. Do I think the Boston Celtics will win more than 51 games this year? Honestly, I still think they'll be one of the top 3 teams out east, given what they've done and who they've done it against. However, do I think they'll be as good as they were last year? And I don't mean from the win column. I mean as good as they were last year statistically. No. I don't think that. They're coming off a long finals run. There was multiple Game 7 series, back-to-back actually, and then they went to the finals and played 6 whole games there. I do not, and I repeat, do not expect them to actually start the season off as terrible as they did last year, but do I think they'll start the season off on fire? No. I'm saying this without looking at their schedules. I don't really know the difficulty of every single person's schedule, but I don't expect them to be that much better than they were last year. And if I had to pick between them improving or regressing, I would say there would be such a slight minimal improvement versus there being a more realistic chance of them regressing in a much more drastic and meaningful way to actually talk about. The Milwaukee Bucks, Chris Middleton is coming off an injury. He hasn't played since round 1 of the playoffs. Do I think the Milwaukee Bucks will still be a 51 team? They've been a 50-win team like every year. I think they were even a 50-win team when the season got shortened. I don't expect them to, suck. They have arguably the best player in the league. If they don't win 50 games, it'll be literally like 49 games. Now, that's not a good thing because 49 games in the East last year would have dropped them all the way down into the, let's see, fifth slot from the third slot. And I know that's something like a massive jump, but that loses a lot of home games in your playoffs runs, which is not ideal. The Bulls, look, okay, let me be real. I'm going to talk about the Sixers next, and then we'll talk about the Bulls. I don't really want to talk about the Raptors. I'm going to be completely honest. There's nothing I can say about the Raptors right now. I haven't really watched the Raptors last year. I don't have an opinion on them. Scottie Barnes is nice. That's cool. Pascal Siakam is a much better player than he was 2 years ago. He deserved to be an All-Star last year, but I really don't have much to say about them. They're well coached defensively, and any good defensive team will make the playoffs. But as I've figured out more often than not, I do not care what's going on in Toronto until Scottie Barnes develops further. Yep. So we're going to talk about the Sixers. The Sixers had the third best big man in the league, Giannis, Jokic, Embiid, just so we're clear. And they were the fourth seed in the conference, in the Eastern Conference last year. I think that's very impressive. Do I think they'll replicate it again? If James Harden isn't as regressed or washed as he was at the end of the season, yeah, I think they should be good. They added some nice role players. I think they'll be a top 3 team in the East. I'm thinking Miami and Philly will probably do a little swap. If I had to bet, though, Doc Rivers coaching is trash. So, he's a good regular season coach, but I really don't know how that's going to help them win in the playoffs. But, hey, as long as Embiid can stay healthy, big if to ask, by the way. But if they can do that, they will be a top 5 team in the East. And if they can really hit their stride, they can even be a top 3 team in the East. The Bulls. So the Bulls lost their defensive identity midway through the season because, they lost Caruso and Zoe. And the media didn't really take that as serious as they should have. Obviously, people who actually know and follow the Bulls knew about this. I'm not one of the people who follow the Bulls, but I follow enough creators to know what's going on with the Bulls. If they're as good as they started off the season last year, and I do mean defensively, not offensively, because their offense will be fine. It's really hard to mess that up. DeRozan, I think, will regress. I don't expect DeRozan to do exactly what he did last year. That's really just unrealistic after that. I don't expect that. But I think this team can genuinely be better. Zoe is injury prone, and we need to put that label on him right now, if you already haven't already. And I really hope this team can find its footing, because they are one of the more fun teams to watch in basketball. But if not, they will be around the same 40-win team that they were this year. They might even win less games. And the East is really competitive. I've already talked about Toronto, what I can say about Toronto, to be quite honest. The Hawks. The DeJounte Murray move does not move the needles for me. And considering that this team was a play-in team last year, and the team that they knocked out, my Cavaliers, in the play-in was injury-riddled. And honestly, it took in a very great performance from Trae Young. And also seeing as I don't think Trae Young is going to be the guy that's going to push you to the playoffs with a roster in Atlanta, mind you, he's really going to have to be a secondary star to a better guard, to be quite honest, or a better big. Because I honestly don't think a forward complements him enough. Yeah. He really needs to take some drastic improvement offensively, because his defense is unrealistic. He'll ever be good at that side of the game of basketball. And it's not even just because of an IQ thing. It's more of an effort thing with Trae Young. But yeah, if that never happens, well, guess what? The Hawks will never make the playoffs legitimately. And the DeJounte Murray move does not move the needle, especially with the Cavaliers getting much better on paper, even much better than the Hawks got on paper, and the Hawks losing some assets and stuff. Hornets, not going to talk about them. They are honestly in the worst position in basketball right now, because their franchise player is probably one of the first franchise players that I could actually see in LaMelo Ball leaving their team before their next contract. It's normally the player takes their first contract, they get the max extension when they're one of those guys, and then they leave. But no, I think LaMelo could break the trend and just say, I don't really care about the max, I want to leave. because it's the Hornets. It's Charlotte. It's run by Michael Jordan. The team is not very good basketball-wise. It doesn't sell out arenas. Not really LaMelo's style. I could see him easily leaving for a bigger market. The Knicks, you gave Jalen Brunson some money, and that's great for you. However, I do not care, and it doesn't move the needle at all for me. Also, if you're wondering, yes, I got a haircut. Cool. Washington. Anyway, let's scroll down to see who else is here. The Pacers. Do you really expect me to talk about Indiana when they didn't make the playoffs and they don't have the coach that made them make the playoffs for the last decade, basically? I'm not talking about fucking Indiana. The Pistons. I actually could see the Pistons making the play-in this year. And the Magic. I'm not going to edit in the cricket effect. You can already hear it in my head. And yeah, that's about everything I have to say for the Eastern Standings. You are getting double uploads today because I'm not putting this all into one take for one video, because if I do it for the West, I'm going to be unsatisfied for it. And anyway, you like the video? Like the video. You don't like the video? Don't like the video. Subscribe, and yeah, that's it. Peace.